Fun fact, Thomas Edison invented the light bulb. Another fun fact, according to deafunity.org, he might possibly be the world's greatest inventor. Last fun fact for you today is that Thomas Edison was almost completely deaf. He was fully deaf in one ear and severely hard of hearing in the other. Now, you might be thinking, hey, that's cool. Thomas Edison couldn't hear, but what does that have to do with me? And that exactly is the problem. It has nothing to do with you. Deaf culture and hearing culture are almost completely separate, and that is mostly the hearing culture's fault. I know the problems that the deaf people face, not because I am deaf, but because I'm studying to become a sign language interpreter, and I interact with deaf people every week, and they tell me the problems they face. In our world of acceptance, the deaf culture has been completely overlooked. They are expected to conform to our social norms and our culture, even though they physically can't participate in it. Now, there's two main ways we can fix this, but first we need to know a bit more about what we're fixing, which leads me to my first point, the historical oppression of the deaf culture. According to deafhistory.eu, Quintus Pedius was the first deaf man recorded in history by name. Now that doesn't mean that he was the first deaf man. It means he was the first deaf man who wasn't immediately put to death or exiled because of his disability. Back then, the Greeks were in charge, and they believed it to be better for you to be dead than for you to be deaf and a burden to society. Now, execution isn't the problem that most deaf people face today in America. However, they still have it hard, which brings me to my second point, the modern day challenges for the deaf community. They face two main challenges. The first one is that people don't know sign language and lack the patience to learn another form of communication with them. I work at Chick-fil-A, and I was taking orders one day, and a deaf customer came in, and so I started signing with him. And he was so happy that someone knew his language, so he starts telling me his whole life story, and I found out that he worked a way less than desirable job just because he didn't have to communicate with people. The barrier wasn't an issue there. And that's so sad that he had to work an awful job just because communication wasn't important. And then the second challenge people face is as soon as they realize you're deaf, they think you're broken or stupid, and I promise you these people are neither. One of my professors who was deaf, he went to the store one day to return a pair of pants. He gets to the counter, gestures, I can't hear, can I get pen and paper? And the lady was like, sure. She writes on it first and says, can you read and write? And hands him the paper. And my professor is a really sassy guy, so he grabs the pen and writes back, no, I can't read and write. Can you help me now? And I have so many more examples of things like that that have happened, but for the sake of time, I can't go into them. But if those two stories make you as mad as they make me, that's good, because that anger and that outrage is going to lead us into our third point, which is what can you do to fix it? There's two main ways you can fix this problem. The first one is you can learn their culture. There's two ways you can do that. The best way is by going to deaf events. And there's two I know you can go to. There's Signing Santa every year in the winter at a skating rink in Arlington. And then the other one you can go to is, it's a Deaf World hosted by TCC Trinity Rivers campus. The other way you can learn their culture is you can take the class at TCC. Trinity Rivers has a sign language interpreting program. One of their classes is literally called Deaf Culture. Take the class and learn from them. And then once you learn their culture, live their culture when you're with them. The second thing you can do to fix this problem is you can learn their language. Their language is ASL, American Sign Language. There's two ways you can learn this. First one, highly recommend this way. Go to TCC, take the class. But if school's hard for you, money's too hard to find, there's another way you can do it. Go online and look up lifeprint.com with Dr. Bill Vickers and their free American Sign Language lessons that you can take. I'd like to close with this thought. I want you to think of how many brilliant people like Thomas Edison, Beethoven, Helen Keller, that this world has completely shunned just because these people couldn't hear. After today, I want you to be motivated to look past everyone's differences and to see everyone for who they are, a person full of potential. Thank you.